For most of us, dirt racing isn't just something we do for fun. It's a part of who we are. For 5 whole months, we're forced to make do without it. And trust me when I say we feel your pain. Come April, the gates will swing open and all will be right with the world again. Until then, we'll just have to talk about it. We're visiting some of the people who've had the biggest impact on dirt racing in Kentucky. We'll hear their stories and discuss the past, present, and future of our sport with the ones who know it best. This is the Road to Race Day on Dirt Racing in the Bluegrass Live, presented by Bluegrass Restoration and Construction.
Well, you should have interrupted us.
Sarah, could you hear anything? Could you hear anything I was just saying, or did we just waste like a whole 2 minutes? I bet they couldn't hear it either because I didn't have us up on the screen. Anyways, we'll just start over. This is Dirt Racing in the Bluegrass Live. We're here at Cornett Racing Engines. I feel like I've already said this once. We literally just spent like 3 minutes thinking we were on the air when we were not. But hey, right. It's our first time being on location. A lot of new stuff going on. I've usually got the computer sitting right in front of me, and I can usually see it. But I'm sitting way over here away so Deborah had to help us out. She was trying to get my attention to tell us, Wes, we weren't on the screen that whole time. Yeah. This is Dirt Racing in the Bluegrass Live, presented by Bluegrass Restoration and Construction. This is the Wilson Plumbing Studio. I'm going through all this. I literally just went through every bit of this, and it done us no good. Absolute Seamless Gutters Hotline. That number's 859-412-1287. It won't be available tonight, but next show you can give us a try on there. The guest segment is which we're here with Jack Cornett here at Cornett Racing Engines, and I'll say it again, Jack. It's good to see you. I already said that once, but nobody heard it.
Glad to have you.
Yeah. So we just have to try it again, and then once we get going in the racing season, we'll also have Wayne's Auto Repair doing the Driver of the Week each and every week. But that guest segment is sponsored by Fast Track Plumbing. We greatly appreciate all of our 2024 sponsors. But anyways, Wes, one more time, it's just really good to be here. Something new for us, but this whole road to race day thing is going to be a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, it really is, and a new adventure for us. Like you'd said earlier, it is different. Kind of a little nervous, and the first one to kick off this road to race day here at Cornett Racing Engines, Somerset, Kentucky. This is definitely a historic site. I think I read business started in 1948, Jack.
That's correct. Yeah.
So, 24 more years, you've hit 100. And so that's pretty impressive.
I'll be pushing it for me.
Yeah.
Well, somebody needs to be in line and keep the business going.
Yeah, somebody's going to have to jump in line and keep just in case Jack ain't around in 24 years. I think he will be. He's still going to be here building motors.
Exactly.
I'm going to be here in some capacity.
Yeah.
My dad lived to be 95, and I told him however far he got, I was beating him by one. So
okay.
I got to make it to at least 96.
Yeah.
You do. You have
win
to
the bet.
At least 96. Yeah, there you go. So I think you can get there. And it'd be even better if you're 96 and still beating these racing engines here. That'd be
even better.
You'd be the oldest engine builder in the country. I guarantee you
I'm
that.
the oldest driver at Lake Cumberland Speedway, so what the heck?
So why not? Yeah, Well, just keep that going there. But yeah, man, you're right. Like I said, a little bit different for us. I'm like Wes, a little bit nervous here. We get so used to just doing our thing every week on the podcast, being in our rooms at the house. That's a lot easier sitting there looking at the computer screen. But like I said, it's just really cool to be here. It's kind of a crazy thing when you think about one of the best engine builders in the country. Maybe we're here right now. Let's say the best engine builder in the country, right here in our backyard in Somerset, Kentucky.
Yeah.
You don't think about it when you walk through the door and you see the trophies, the Engine Builder of the Year trophies and stuff, and you're kind of like, wow, man, this is right here.
Yeah. Well, I'll just be honest with you. Anytime I take that road right there through Somerset, it don't matter if it's 3 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the day. I always look up here because you never know who may be here. What hauler will be in the parking lot, what driver will be up here. So it's always cool, and this has always been a staple for the state of Kentucky and Somerset, but also drivers across the United States, and then even across the pond. You've got drivers in Australia,
New Zealand as well.
In New Zealand. Heck, he took a phone call right before we went live. A driver out of Australia.
Yeah.
So super cool. And like I said earlier, I know we've always got technical difficulties, but I said it earlier and y'all didn't hear it, but got chills and goosebumps just being here in Cornett Racing Engines today, and to have our first show, the road to race day 2024, just ready to get going.
Yeah.
And awesome to be here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that is for sure. If you don't care, real quick, just give this a share with all your friends. It would help us a whole lot. We've got a lot of people on right now, but let's get even more on here. Again, we're live at Cornett Racing Engine in Somerset, Kentucky. Let's break the live attendance record here tonight if we can. So give this a share, please. Every single one of you on there right now, we would greatly appreciate it if you would do that. Jack, we'll go ahead and get to it, man. Wes mentioned Cornett Cornett Racing Engines started, I think you said 1947. 48.
1948.
Wes did more research than I did on this show. I'm kind of jealous about. I'm usually the one that's done the research and more prepared, but Wes did more research than I did. He's got he knows when it started. But tell us a little bit more about the history of everybody out there listening, because a lot of people don't really know a whole lot about the business and the history, and probably never even been here to the building, but they're familiar with Cornett Racing Engines.
Well, this was a business before I was born.
Yeah.
So my dad was a heavy equipment operator and mechanic during the war.
Oh, okay.
And that's how he got to working on engines. And I guess he decided he wanted, to make a go of a engine business.
Yeah.
Working on engines, and he's moved to Somerset. Don't really know why. They never said why. Never heard that story. But
yeah,
he started in 1948, I think, with two people.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And this is our third location we've been in.
Oh, really? Here in Somerset?
Well, this spot.
Oh, okay. Oh, I got you. Okay. All right. So it's a huge place up here. The machine shop is out front, and this engine shop here. So you're talking about like on this property, but 3 separate buildings, right? Is it kind of what you mean by that, or has it been?
The original machine shop is the building in front of this one.
Okay.
And my brother operated it till about 2 years ago. He retired in about this time 2 years ago.
Okay.
They sold all the equipment off, so it's all gone.
Yeah.
And my nephew actually rents the building now he's got a house building business. So.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
The old original, all the equipment is gone.
Yeah. From the machine shop.
The only part of it left is just my part, the racing engines. That's it.
Yeah. So you said this business started in 1948. Your dad moved to Somerset, sort of get the engine business started here. Where was he from? Where were you from? Where'd you live before you moved to Somerset?
Both my parents are from Laurel County.
Okay.
They both were.
Yeah.
And they moved. They lived all over the state because he went where the work was.
Right.
Yeah.
And just ended up here.
Okay. I got you. So what do you know why Somerset? I mean, back then, 1948, why Somerset?
No, my sister could probably answer that question, but she's a family historian, but
yeah.
I don't really know.
Yeah, I know Deborah's here. She's in the real estate business. So I mean, looking at it now in today's time, it'd be an easy answer to say why Somerset. I mean, this is a booming place, and I mean, just the real estate that's here, sitting where Cornett Racing Engines set is a good piece of real estate in itself.
Born and raised here, and never lived any place else. So it's really amazing how much it's grown in my lifetime. It's great.
Yeah. Oh, heck, just in our lifetime, it just keeps growing, and it's kind of developed around, Lake Cumberland, and for me, it's the best of both worlds because I love to fish and I love to race. So I got Lake Cumberland, and I got Lake Cumberland Speedway in Burnside. So that's the best of both worlds for me. For Somerset, Pulaski County has. So I love it here.
So who was your dad? You're thinking about this the history of getting it started. I mean, not every, even sure there's been a lot of engine builders over time that said, hey, I want to start building engines, but not everybody becomes Cornett Racing Engines. So how did your dad turn, and then eventually with you, how did it become what it is today?
Back in Dad always, I guess, had a passion for racing.
Mm-hmm.
And back in the 50s, the engine of choice, in local dirt racing was a flathead Ford.
Yeah.
And I guess he became legendary for building flathead Fords.
Okay.
And, as time went on, he was originally from the heavy equipment industry. And I think he realized that the heavy equipment industry was much more profitable than building racing engines. So he kind of, they still dabbled in it, when I was young, but it was mostly heavy equipment.
Okay.
So, I grew up here, with a wrench in my hand.
Yeah.
And all I've ever cared about was racing.
Yeah.
And I love all types of racing.
Yeah.
So that's all I wanted to do was race or be a part of it somehow.
Yeah.
And so they were still when I was a kid, they still building racing engines. Just, it was kind of a sideshow.
Okay.
The main business was heavy equipment.
That's where he was making the money. Was on.
So I'm looking at these. Do I want to be working on this pretty race engine right here, or this nasty diesel?
Yeah.
And I still hate diesels to this day.
I can imagine. Yeah. Especially when you get used to looking at these pretty race engines like we got sitting right here behind us, man. I don't blame you.
So when I got out of school, I went to college for a couple of years and got out of school and started working full time. And my dream was to be one of the best engine builders in the country. That's my dream.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a pretty cool thing because a lot of people have a dream.
Right.
It's like a dream to be the best at anything or one of the best at anything. But to set out and dream it in an industry like this, because I can't imagine it. I mean, look, it's hard to make money in racing. Oh yeah. In general.
Right.
In anything you do. So I think to be able to accomplish that dream, be able to live and do that has to be a pretty cool thing.
It wasn't easy, I can tell you that.
Yeah. Well, tell us. What was it?
I started working full time in 76, I think. Yeah, 76.
Yeah.
So in 3 more years, I've been working here for 50 years.
Okay.
And I've never had a job anyplace else.
Okay.
This is the only place I've ever worked.
That's super cool. I mean, was born and raised in it, as you said, with a wrench in your hand.
Pretty much, yes.
And sound to me like, learning from your dad. Your dad was the best at the time, so I mean, he taught you, I'm sure,
a lot,
everything that he knew, and then you go to school and you learn little things, and then you've got your own little twists and things to get more horsepower and things that you learned, and that's just a credit to where you're at today.
Earliest I can remember working I was probably in middle school, and for some reason I can remember it was a 427 Ford.
Okay.
They used to run them back in the 60s, and it was blowed up, and they said, "Here, take this apart."
Yeah.
And I literally had to take a cutting torch to it to get it apart. We're going to break you in good.
No kidding. Yeah.
But, so, I just learned, basically the hard way.
It sounds like, too, though, you're the one your dad did racing engines, but his focus was on the industrial part. So, really, the Cornett Racing Engines, you sort of took that over and kind of made that your own deal. Like, I'm gonna take this part and I'm gonna run with it.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to do, and that's what I concentrated on. And my parents allowed me to do that.
Yeah, and that's an awesome thing. I imagine you got to have the sport. What was the hard? You talked about how hard it was. I can only imagine because, like I said, doing anything in racing.
I mean, if you were to start up and try to start an engine shop now, I don't see it could be possible.
Yeah.
If you had to buy all the equipment and then hire people, and it costs so much money, it would be dang near impossible unless you had somebody with really deep pockets that wanted to,
like anything else,
to be your partner or whatever. So luckily, we started building racing engines, and like I said, we'd been doing it, but that's kind of what I concentrated on, and luckily I had all the equipment was there. I had all the equipment was at my disposal, so I, learned how to build an engine, learned how to do. I've never been really big into machine work, but I learned how to do what I had to learn how to do.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I got started. And then my very first employee that I had building engines was Eddie Middleton.
Okay.
And he ended up, I'm not sure how long Eddie worked here, but he moved to Charlotte and worked in NASCAR until he retired just a few years ago.
Oh, okay.
And now he's moved back. He lives in Lancaster now.
Okay.
And he's still building engines in his garage.
Is he really?
He builds Dodges,
okay.
old NASCAR Dodges.
Yeah.
He bought Penske out when they quit building engines. He bought all their Dodge stuff.
Their Dodge stuff.
So he even brings them down here and dynos them.
Does he? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And he was the first employee you had here. How many employees do you have here today?
I think there's 8 of us.
Okay.
Yeah, 8 of us that work in the race shop.
Gotcha. What's the most you've had at one time? You remember?
Probably 9 or 10, maybe 10 at one time.
That's a lot. Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of people though. When you think about that, I mean, for an engine shop, that's
trying to keep them all busy. Yeah.
yeah. I imagine. What's been the toughest thing? You think over the years? What's the hardest thing about staying at this level?
Getting there. Getting there was hard, and staying on top might even be harder.
Sure, man, yeah.
It was a struggle just to get here because I mean the name was known, but not big time.
Yeah.
Not in big time dirt racing.
Right.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
That well known, so. It was a struggle to get there, and in the early '80s, we did a lot of we do dirt track engines during the summer months, spring and summer, and we did a lot of truck pulling stuff during the winter.
Oh, okay.
And that kept us busy, and Jeff Purvis had bought an engine from us when he first started racing.
Yeah.
And
that's a big name.
And won a bunch of races, and that kind of got the ball rolling a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I think he switched. He ran our engines for a couple of years, and then he went to Baker.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about the time he really started winning on everything.
Yeah.
So the first guy that I can remember that won, say, a big race for us was we got hooked up with Keith and Tater Masters at Masterville.
Yeah.
This would have been early to mid '80s, and John Gill was the driver.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And John won, the Jackson 100, and so a lot of big races for us.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we kind of hit the big time at that moment, and it just escalated from there.
Yeah.
And then '89, we got hooked up with this guy you might have heard of named Scott Bloomquist.
I have heard of him, yeah. Yeah, that name rings a bell, yeah. It sure does. Yeah.
So we did engines for him for 10 years and, won everything there was to win.
Man, yeah. That's
that's awesome.
So that really put us over the hump at that. We were on the map at that point.
Yeah. And you said that was in '89.
'89 was when we built the first engine for him. Yeah, remember it well.
So how in the world, just follow up to that question, how in the world does a guy from Somerset, Kentucky, I mean, he's big at that point, but how do you go about, at that time, talking about Purvis and when really kind of put you on the map, how do you go about getting that opportunity? Like, how hard was it to, and then on the Bloom
win and get out there and say, hey,
Well, we were building some engines for, I don't know if you've got a guy by the name of Don Cox. I don't know if it might be before your all's time.
The name sounds familiar.
Yeah. He was from, might have been from, he might have been from Pine Knot, Quarry County.
Okay.
In the Mike Marler area.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And he drove for a guy from London by the name of Spec Parsons, and they won a lot of, dirt late model races in our area.
Mm-hmm.
And they were running at Atomic, the old Atomic track in Knoxville.
Oh, yeah.
And one of their crew guys told me, he said, man, they won the track championship down there like 2 or 3 years in a row. And they said, man, there's this kid down there, real young. He's only about 16, 17 by the name of Bloomquist. And this kid's giving us fit. He's really good. So that's the first time I ever heard the name. So from then on, I started paying attention to what he was doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then I think in '88 was when he went to Eldora and won the World 100 at his first try.
Yeah, right, yeah.
And then we got hooked up right after that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'd been working on him for a year or two.
Well, that's what I was saying. I imagine that it's not one of those things
he
that's
knew
like
me,
overnight.
I knew him, I introduced myself, and I'd been working on him for a year or two, to hook up with us. And in '89, we made it happen.
Yeah, yeah. Because when you think, I'm just thinking like, and I know Cornett was along for the ride in Bloomquist's career becoming what it is.
Yeah.
Right, but still, probably even at that time, he was the guy that everybody around racing saying, "Man, this is the guy."
Right.
That you needed to get. And
Barry Wright told me one time that he said Scott's worth about 3/10. Just him. It's a quick story. Yeah. I've raced a little bit myself off and on, and Scott was driving this asphalt car. I was into asphalt racing.
Yeah.
I never raced dirt in my life till I started racing at Lake Cumberland.
Oh, okay.
And they were racing at Coburn, Virginia. It's a half-mile asphalt track. And Scott had been over. He would race it when he had time.
Yeah.
And there was the guy that won all the races. I don't remember his name, but when Scott would show up, he'd beat this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he drove. It was a Ford, and the car belonged to a guy by the name of John King, and he owns Ford dealership in can't think of the name of town. One before you get to Bristol.
Newport, or it's not
Newport. Kingsport.
Kingsport, yeah.
He owned Ford dealership in Kingsport, and anyway, Scott had raced it 5 or 6 times and either won or run second to this other guy, and I'm like. At the time, I was racing at the old Louisville Motor Speedway. I had a late model. I raced there. It was asphalt.
Yeah.
So I talked Scott into seeing if these guys would let me drive this car when he couldn't.
Okay, yeah.
So I weaseled my way into the ride. So we went over our test one day. And I don't remember the exact lap times, but, I'm running like a 16, Scott – and this other guy run 1650 and 1660, let's say.
Yeah.
And I'd been running 1680, 90, let's say. And so Scott happens to come over. And, well, hey, won't you get in the car and try it?
Yeah.
So he gets in the car and no fire suit, no nothing on. Just puts a helmet on, and he gets in the car and takes off, and he runs 3, 4, 5 laps, and he's running the same speed I was, 16, 80, 90. And he pulls in. They let the wind in that down. They show him his lap times.
Yeah.
He nods his head. They didn't touch the car.
Okay.
Didn't do anything to it. And he goes right back out there and starts running 1650s and 60s. And he comes back in. I'm like, how the heck did you do that?
Yeah.
I just changed my line a little. And that's what he said.
Well, it's 0.3 of a second.
Yeah, 0.3 of a second.
Yeah.
That just shows you what kind of a driver the man was. I mean, he was extraordinary.
Yeah. Well, and that's not to take anything away from you, because I see it. What's the old saying you hear all the time? Luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Right.
Because at the same time, Scott was who he was, but once you got that opportunity, the motor had to get the job done.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he couldn't. So you were prepared for it.
Well, everybody's always saying, well, he's got the fastest car and he's got the best engine. But let me tell you something. Somebody still got to sit in there and drive.
Right.
Sure.
Yes. So
yeah.
The driver's a lot of it.
Yeah. Oh, it is. Yeah.
And I tell people, all right, let me ask you this question. Do you think there's a difference in the top 10 NBA players and the rest of them? Well, sure you do.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, race car drivers ain't different.
Right.
Yeah.
There's the top 10 are a lot better than the rest of them. Mm-hmm. It's just the way it is.
Yeah. Put it in today's perspective, looking even at the NASCAR level. I mean, you look at a guy like Kyle Larson. I mean,
he can drive anything.
He can drive anything.
Yeah.
So driver, the car means a lot, motor means a lot. It has to be there for them. But there's a big, driver makes a big difference too.
And you look at those two, you say compare Larson and Bloomquist. Well, they're the type they can jump in anything, like Scott going from dirt racing and then jump in an asphalt car when he had time.
Yes.
And still beating guys that win
all the time.
Yeah. Yes. So it's like same thing with Larson. First time he jumps in a late model, he wins, and it's like this guy's just he's on another level than everybody else. So just a cool deal. But you look at both of their careers and how they could get anything whether it's asphalt or dirt, and win.
Absolutely, yeah.
So
an extraordinary talent.
Oh yeah,
without question.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about two of the drivers there. It's funny because you say Purvis, man, and like everybody you talk to, if you're having a conversation about dirt racing history, it's like everybody wants to bring up Purvis. If Purvis had only said, it's like Purvis is the one everybody goes to that had Purvis not got hurt, Purvis not went on to other things, he would have been. Everybody wants to say he would have been right there with Bloomquist.
Yeah, probably would have been. Yeah, probably would have been.
So that's two of them. Who are some of the other drivers you see?
Well, in the mid-'90s, we also Jack Boggs.
Okay.
We were building engines for Scott Bloomquist was running a Ford we were building, and Jack Boggs was running a Chevy we were building.
Okay.
And they were I think it was '95. Them two won everything.
Yeah.
They won every big race except I think maybe the Dixie Shootout.
Okay.
One of them two won everything.
Yeah. That's another big name. I think I'm sure our listeners have all heard of Jack Boggs.
Yeah. He was a heck of a shoe, too. I mean, he was an extraordinary driver, without question.
Yeah.
He was a good one.
Yeah.
And that's something that Scott was running a Ford and Jack was running a Chevy. So, but both of them coming out of your garage.
Picture up there somewhere. They had a race at Lake Cumberland Speedway, and so we got both of them, and we sponsored it as a Cornett 100 lapper.
Oh, okay.
Now I'm guessing this was in the mid-'90s sometime, and Paul, Big Daddy Feistreiser, if y'all know that name, we built engines for him. Good friend of mine. He was a heck of a driver. I mean, he was the best of all time at Lake Cumberland and Ponderosa. He won everything.
Yeah.
And so we had this race at Lake Cumberland and got Jack and Scott to come in. And Paul ran third to him, but he was like 3 laps down. And Scott and Jack had, I don't know if they made it up or not, but them dudes passed each other at least 15 times.
Really?
And they swap. One be running low and the other one run high and pass him. Then they'd flip-flop and the other one be, it was a crazy race. And Scott beat Jack to the line on the last lap by a fender.
Wow.
Man.
It was one of the best races I've ever done.
I'd like to be at that, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
If we could rewind the clock and it sounds like a race. Yeah, just go back and be a part of that.
It was a crazy race.
Yeah.
But that's just how dominant they were. I mean, Paul ran third, and he was the king of Burnside.
Right, yeah.
And he was 3 or 4 laps down. Or something.
And those two swapping leads and slide jobs and changing
lanes and lines. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'd love to have seen that.
Yeah, I would have too, and that would have sure been a fun one to be a part of. What's the reason for? I'm just curious. What's the reason for Boggs being in the Chevy? Why did he want the Chevy, and why did Bloomer want the Ford?
Well, we just wanted to build, one of each, because some guys don't want to run a Ford, and some guys, want to run a Chevy.
Just like in life, I guess. Yeah. I mean, I'm a Ford guy. I don't really know why. I like them all, but I drive a Ford. I always have.
Exactly. He drives a Ford. I drive a Chevy.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like we were the builder that brought the Ford into dirt late model racing.
Yeah.
So at the time, Bill Elliott and others were just kicking butt in NASCAR. With the Ford.
Yeah.
$1 million bill. I mean, they couldn't be beat. I'm like, man, these Fords run awful good.
Yeah.
So, my dad was a personal friend of Jack Roush.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if y'all know it or not, but Jack's a graduate of Berea College.
Yeah, I did.
I read
that.
Yeah.
So he married a girl from Monticello.
Okay.
That he met at Berea College.
Mm.
So he was, if you're going from Berea to Monticello, you got to drive through
Somerset.
Yeah.
So he heard about, the shop, and he stopped by and introduced himself to Dad one day, and they were friends ever since.
Hey, that's a pretty good connection.
My dad knew Jack when he was in college, met him when he was in college, and knew him that whole time. Jack first started racing, drag racing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And pro stock. And when I was in middle school, Dad took me to the Nationals at Indy.
Yeah.
And to the pits, and we were hanging out with Jack Roush and pro stock team in the pits, and I just
so cool.
I was I was in seventh heaven.
That's a pretty good.
It's the most awesome thing that could ever happen.
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. Especially for somebody that wants
middle
to
school
I was
boy
in eighth grade or something.
From Somerset, rubbing elbows in Indianapolis with Jack Roush.
Yeah,
so
how cool is that?
So I called Jack up. And I said, look, we're thinking about building a Ford for a dirt car.
Mm-hmm.
Who do I need to talk to? So he said, here's the guy you need to talk to at Ford Racing. So, and it was the head honcho,
mm-hmm.
CEO or president, whatever, a fellow by the name of Lee Hampkins. And so I called him up, and we have a conversation for a couple of hours. And told him we want to try to bring the Ford into dirt racing. And he says, well, it's funny you call because we're developing aluminum block. Like right now.
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing. So we talked, and he said, I'll get back to you. And I'm like, no, I'll never hear from him again.
Sure,
this ain't going to happen. And like a week later, he's calling back up and saying, what do you need?
Gosh.
So that's how the Ford got started. And we were, I won't say successful. I think the first one we took it, that's when Scott was driving for Barry Wright. And the first one we took to Eldora, and that wasn't good. But we figured out the Ford has a lot more oil flow, still does.
Mm-hmm.
It uses more gallons per minute of oil, and we didn't know that, so we didn't have big enough lines on the car.
Okay.
So it starved for oil.
Yeah, that's not good.
No, it didn't end up.
Yeah,
like something's wrong, and then we look at the filter. And that was the very first one that didn't start off good. I was very disappointed.
Man, that's.
But we fixed that, and then like the next year, he literally kicked ass and won everything with that Ford.
Yeah.
Hey, but you had to start somewhere.
Yeah.
You had to learn from your mistakes. And then after that,
I've learned everything the hard way.
Yeah. I don't know if there's any other way to learn, to be honest with you. I think it's just the hard way.
So we got there's a letter I got in my office that Ford sent me after that season that was signed by, the head honchos at Ford Racing congratulating us on what we'd done. And that's one of my one of my proudest things on my wall.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
Well, we're going to see all that. We want to kind of go through and do a tour after we finish the podcast, and we'll go up and upload that. That'll be something for the viewers to see, because this place is so cool. I mean, I walked in and I'm just like this and in amazement, because I had been in the front of the shop, but I hadn't ever been back here where the work's done.
Do you get that a lot? People come in here. I mean, do race fans ever just come in?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, people come in and just, hey, I was driving through Somerset and want to stop and get a shirt, a hat, or just see the place. Yeah, absolutely.
So we're not totally weird or anything.
No.
Well, that's a good.
When Dad
Dad
was still alive, he's always giving people tours. That's what he liked to do.
Yeah. Well, I see. It was last year before last. We'd come over here to Summer Splash, me and my wife and my daughter, and I come in and I said, they said, where we going over through here? I said, just sit in the vehicle. I'm wanting a shirt, so I come in and bought a Cornett Racing Engines shirt, and that's when y'all would come out with that kind of throwback look. And I saw one at the track, and I said, I've got to get that shirt. So the next time I was over here, I said, I'm making a stop.
Yeah. I've got to get. I need one of them hoodies. You got extra one of them in stock.
There might be.
I wanted a hat.
If there's any here, it'll be a little one. So I might have one for
good. Yeah, just my size, the size I need.
Yeah.
So that'll be good. Well, it's we've got about 20 minutes. I told Wes, I said we're going to pretend we're on the radio tonight. It's a sharp cutoff. We don't want to keep Jack here all night. We've been known to spend
all night. I don't care.
We've been known to spend 3 hours on the podcast with someone like James Essex. That was a one-time deal, but no, I mean,
I bet you won't ever do that again.
Well, You know what? It was the most.
Never say never.
Yeah, never say never. That's what I was thinking.
I can't say anything bad about James because he's a Colts fan.
Oh,
okay, all right.
Me and him are both Colts fans.
Well,
I think when I saw y'all down at the World Finals, didn't you go watch the Colts and Colts and the Panthers?
Yeah, it was my youngest boy. He's a Panthers fan.
Oh, okay.
So we'd planned it for a year. Hey, Colts are playing at the Panthers the weekend of the World Finals. We're going.
Oh,
that's
perfect.
We won, so the Colts won, so it's even better.
That's
so
a good. Yeah,
I get to ride him till we play again.
Yeah.
Well, ride him. I mean, the Panthers, they didn't win but 2 or 3 games all year, did they?
No. All the guys. My youngest son Josh just started working this year.
Okay.
And he's been here 6 months, 8 months, something like that.
Yeah.
So he seems to be enjoying it, I think.
So we were talking off the air right before we came on, just between the three of us. You said your dad lived to be 95, I think it was. Is that right?
Yeah.
And
95.
you said you always told your dad you was going to live one more year.
Yeah.
You was going to put 1 year on it.
Yeah.
So and then that led to okay, you're going to be building engines when you're 96, Jack.
No, I hope not. I might just supervise. That's what I do now mostly.
Yeah. So it sounds like though you could have your maybe a possible years down the line maybe a replacement here.
He might.
Somebody's going to have to take over eventually.
We'll see how he likes it. He's learning.
Yeah.
Well, teach him everything you know right now and tell him.
That'll take about 5 minutes.
Yeah. Tell him to be a sponge and just soak it all up.
Yeah. I saw on the news that NASCAR is testing a all-electric vehicle. Did you see that?
No.
I heard
I'm out on that.
Listen, if it ever comes to that, I mean, what in the world is – we wouldn't even be racing.
Nah.
I think Jeff Soxie said one time
we had to see him go racing without any noise.
Yeah. Jeff Soxie said one time we had to put the sound of the cars on there over the PA.
I saw today that Ford is suspending production of that F-150 Lightning electric truck.
Well, good.
Yeah, they're
shutting
it down.
Yeah, it's who wants.
I don't want to drive an electric vehicle.
The problem is we don't have the infrastructure.
No,
where are you going to charge it at?
And then who's going to be able to? All right, that battery messes up. That's like $10,000-$15,000 for a battery. It's like, well, that's great.
Yeah,
who's got that laying around?
No one.
I'll keep my gas engine. Hopefully.
I don't want no electric vehicle for sure.
Jack don't want to work on a diesel either. So
well, that's funny you said that because my papa was in the business. He worked on cars and he had a gas station, full service gas station, and he hated working on anything diesel. Putting diesel fuel even in vehicles. He said, you get that stuff on you, you'll smell like it all week. You wash, you take however many baths, but he didn't like working on diesel vehicles, diesel engines, whatever.
Yes, that oil that's inside the crankcase, it's nasty.
Yeah. And it smelled, it had its own smell just like diesel fuel. You know, it's just
you couldn't get the smell off of you. That's right.
Yeah.
So that's funny. You and him had that in common.
Yeah. Jack says gas engines is where it's at. Right. So he's built a good business, and it's pretty cool. So we talked about a couple of those drivers. Looking at doors here, just hanging in the shop. Just real quick, talk about some of the others. Rattle some off to us. I know there's been about every big name you can think of over the years. So
after Scott and Jack, we would have probably I think Rick Eckert.
Mm-hmm.
He won a couple titles driving for Ray Vest in that orange 24.
Yeah.
And one thing I always remember, it was Have a Tampa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then it went to, I think, UDTRA.
Yeah.
And now it's, Lucas.
Right.
And Rick won it, I think, back-to-back when it was UDTRA.
Okay.
And he was running Fords.
Uh-huh.
Because Ray Vest liked Fords.
Yeah.
And one season, Rick completed every lap.
Mm-hmm.
The entire season.
Wow.
Every lap.
That's a pretty big accomplishment right there.
And I'm like, man, that's That's crazy when you think about it. He completed every lap of the entire season.
Yeah.
That's hard to do.
Yeah, and won the championship. So he was
Robbie Allen, who crew chiefs now for Satterley.
Oh, okay.
He was the crew chief.
Yeah.
So
I thought that name sounded familiar. I wasn't sure where it's coming from, but
Rick's a good fella and a heck of a driver in his own right.
Yeah.
Then Darrell Lanigan, won I think a couple World Outlaws titles. We built engines for Darrell for 20 years or longer.
Yeah.
Bart Hartman, I mentioned earlier. Yeah. He won one World 100 and should have won 2.
Yeah.
But a push rod broke.
Oh, okay.
And I kept that push rod. A tip broke off of it, and I kept it on my desk for about 10 years.
Did you really?
And then I finally threw it away because it cost us a World 100.
Yeah.
And then Josh Richards.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He was like 16 when Bart and Josh both drove for Mark Richards.
Okay.
So we built engines for Mark for, I don't know how long, but a long time.
Yeah.
He was a good customer for a long time, and me and Mark are still great friends.
Sure.
That's good.
He's a heck of a car builder and a super nice guy.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. Yeah.
And he's been around a long time. Long time.
Yeah.
And then, Jimmy Owens.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we would have drifted into the Jimmy Owens era. And, he won, 2-3 titles?
Yeah.
Something like that. Won everything there was.
Won everything coming and going, for a long time.
So we did that with a Ford. And then you kind of drift into, present day, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In the last, 10 years, 5-10 years. There's Blankenship. I see him. He won a World 100 for us.
Yeah.
Come out of the Consi and started on the tail.
Right.
And won the World 100. Pretty impressive night.
Now, that's one right there that I wish would have really stayed in.
Yes.
If he would have stayed in the dirt scene, I think prior to, didn't he run motocross and was kind of into that? And then.
Not sure about that, but, John could drive.
Oh, John was.
I just
good.
don't. And his dad would have spent
whatever,
whatever we need, he'd spend it to go racing. But I think John probably got burnt out on it and just lost interest.
Ready to do something else. How crazy is that, though?
He was one of those talents. I mean, he just.
But he can drive, absolutely.
Yeah.
He was good.
Yeah. See a 157.
Yeah, I was getting ready to mention, we built motors for Mike and Ronnie Delt for 10 years.
Yeah.
For 10 years. And Mike won a whole lot of races.
He sure did, yeah.
And, he's just an hour down the road. And, Mike's, driving for another team now and another engine builder, but we're still friends. Sure. We always will be.
Yeah.
He won the championship in 18 World Outlaws.
That's one thing I've tried, not to get butt hurt when somebody goes to another builder. It's things happen, teams change, things happen. I try to remain friends with everyone.
I'm sure it just sort of
don't burn any bridges.
It becomes part of the business.
They can come back.
When it's going to come back.
They can come back. Yeah.
But you have to take that personal at times too, especially if you've been with a driver for, let's say, 10 plus years. It has to. You feel it.
Oh, sure.
Personally.
Personal in the sense, man,
you
that
still
sucks.
wish they was running your stuff, but that's life.
But in the racing business, that could change like this.
Oh, yes.
And you get a phone call say, hey, build me a motor.
Yes, sure.
Yeah. So
change overnight.
Yeah. So how important has that attitude, your attitude toward that? Like, hey, look, it happens. There's a chance that one of these days it's going to come back.
That.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I probably didn't handle it too well.
Who are you leaving me for? You've won all these races.
So,
now you're going somewhere
You get
else.
older, you get wiser, you learn there's no need to, hold a grudge.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you left. There's just still be friends, no matter what.
And that's a common thing is as we talk to whatever, if it's drivers, if it's car owners, if it's series directors, they always say when I was younger, I made these decisions. As I get older and I mature, I'm smarter and I handle situations better. And that's a common thing across the board when we talk to people.
Sure, and all forms of whatever you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then I see the 6, so we got to mention
I know,
Kevin Rumley and
Yes.
Larson. Kevin's been a very loyal customer and super, super smart guy.
Mm-hmm.
And, and he's, helped me, develop the engine package.
Yeah. Yeah.
From his feedback. So he's a very smart guy, a super nice guy.
Very intelligent. So, I mean, you put your two minds together racing-wise, and look what you got.
Kevin, went to school to be a mechanical engineer, and, he used to work at CV Products called Exeldyne now, but like the belt drive on the front of this engine.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know it, but Kevin designed that belt drive.
Yeah.
And
Is
almost
that-
every engine builder in dirt racing uses that belt drive, whether it's a Ford or a Chevy.
He's just
Kevin
a smart
designed
dude.
that.
Yeah. He's just a smart dude.
Very intelligent.
It sounds like in all this, and I think it's true with anything in life. It's a lot of anything we do in life has a lot to do with the people we
surround
ourselves with, and making the most of those opportunities.
Yes.
Put a good
with those
team
people.
around you of people that's going to help you succeed. It don't matter what it's in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I've been smart enough to realize there's a whole lot of people out there a lot smarter than I am.
Absolutely. I realize
So
that every day.
Yeah, me too. I was gonna say that
utilize
takes us a
their
long way.
intelligence. I heard once, 2 brains is always smarter than 1.
That's true,
You know.
man. Yeah, that's good.
And 2 set of eyes. I mean, they can
Yeah.
see something that you don't see and make a difference.
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, you've definitely.
And I got to mention, the guys that's worked here over the years.
Sure.
I could have not done any of this
Yeah.
without the guys that's worked here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Tell us about some of them.
some names that really.
Well, I told you about Eddie Middleton. Another guy that worked here in the 80s by the name of Rick Mounts. Rick and I graduated together, high school.
Yeah.
And he worked here about 10 years. And Rick, actually, he was a drag racer.
Okay.
And, back then we built truck pulling motors, drag racing motors, dirt motors, you name it, we built it.
Mm-hmm.
And another fellow by the name of Steve Cox, he was here back in the 80s. And they both left me at the same time and went to Toyota in Georgetown when they first opened.
Okay.
But they was making more money, and you couldn't blame them for that.
Right.
And they retired from Toyota.
Yeah, it's a good retirement.
Yes.
Good place to retire from too.
Yeah.
Then, in the 90s, trying to think of some of the guys that's been here. A guy by the name of Dave Delcamp. Excuse me. Guys here now, if you know James Phelps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
James could tell you more than I, but he worked there in the 90s.
Okay.
And left and moved to Charlotte, and he worked for the Petty organization and Maurice Petty, I think.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I hope I said that right. They get mad at me if I miss it. And he worked at RCR for a long time.
Yeah.
And then decided they wanted to move back to Kentucky, and he showed up here one day and wanted to know if I needed any help. And I said, absolutely.
Sure.
And he's
Yeah.
been here for several years now.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's very instrumental in what we do now, for sure.
Yeah.
Greg Oakes, that's here now. He's been with me for 20-something years. Greg Steffens was here. He'd been with us for 20-something years. And, last 1st of June last year, he found out he had cancer, bone marrow cancer, and he was gone in October.
Yeah, that's tough.
And
Yeah.
Worked right up till he found out he had it.
Yeah.
And gone that quick.
Yeah. Cancer's
4 months.
Yeah.
4 months gone, and I hired him he ran the dyno for several years, and he'd been building engines for 15 years. He was a dandy.
Cancer's a terrible thing, man.
Yeah,
I tell you, it's just a brutal thing. And
J.R.
really
Haynes
tough.
is here now. He's been with us for 20 years, I guess. So I don't have a lot of turnover.
yeah, that's a good thing. Yeah,
The guys that work here probably make more money someplace else, but they love it.
Yeah.
They like engines, they like racing.
Yep.
They love it.
And it has to be a
means a lot.
testament that you're a good person to work for, and you take care of your employees.
Absolutely.
Well, I think my parents taught me that. They always treated their employees like family.
Yeah.
So that's how I think of them.
Right.
I think of them as my family. It's my job to help take care of them.
Yeah. Sure.
Well, you look
Big
at it,
responsibility too.
when you're in business like that, even in what I do, I'm a park manager, but I treat my employees the way I would want to be treated.
Absolutely.
And I don't ask of them nothing that I ain't already done or I won't do.
Sure.
Because that's just the way the way I was raised.
I think that's the way anything ought to be run. Yeah.
Mom and Dad taught me that, so.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a good way to run a business for sure. So that's we got signals going on here.
I don't know.
Deborah's
Did you
trying to-
pick up on that signal, Jack? What? I think I don't know. I'm not sure.
I'm not either.
Text Wes.
Oh, Bob.
Oh, okay.
I got
Bob.
it.
She got it good.
Extra.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Bob's our current dyno man.
Yeah.
And he rebuilds carburetors. And y'all remember Somerset houseboats?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Bob was their head mechanic for like 30 years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And when
Yeah. Yeah.
and Joe Sharp, whose family owned Somerset houseboats, I went to high school with Joe and Chip, grew up with them.
Okay.
So I knew them. And when they went out of business, Bob come up here one day. He said, "Hey, man, I need to." And I knew Bob through them.
Yeah.
And I knew I'd been to races with Bob.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe was a big race fan, so was Bob. So he come up here one day. "Hey, I need to turn you in as, for my unemployment. That I tried to get a job here." And I was like, "Well, you need a job?" Well, yeah. So I hired him.
I know a
He's been
guy.
here
Not
for
just
like-
turn me in as unemployment, just come work for me.
Yeah.
So he's been here, 10, 15, I don't know how long,
Yeah,
10,
cool.
12, 15
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. There you go. Hey, that worked out for everybody.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. So.
But we're all getting old.
Yeah.
And, trying to find some younger people.
Yeah.
So
Is that a hard thing today? I mean, is it?
I don't think there just doesn't seem to be as many young people interested in this.
Yeah.
You're always going to find young people who want to go racing. I want to be a driver. I want to go racing. But who's the young people that's going to be building the race cars?
Yeah.
Who's the young people
Yeah.
that's going to be building the engines?
Sure. Yeah.
There's not very many.
Yeah. Like you hear people talk about all the time. Any trade
Yeah.
job is tough to find people to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm sure engine building is the same way.
Yeah,
Everybody wants.
there's some out there. So there was like I say, my son's been here 6-8 months. He's learning, and we went to Roger Sellers, who owns Devin
Yeah.
Moran's team,
Yeah.
who I should have mentioned earlier, and that when we were talking about drivers, and I got to mention Tim McCree.
Oh, we got it in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Timmy won back-to-back Lucas titles, so he needs to be mentioned with Donald Bratcher.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's been so many.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Anyway, this Roger Sellers introduced me to this kid from University of Northwest Ohio.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then we talked, and he called me up last spring. Said, "Hey, I'm on spring break. Could I come down and work a week?"
Yeah.
Sure. So we put him to tearing down a couple motors, and boom, done. And everybody here in the shop fell in love with him, that week. You need to hire this.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, that's a good thing.
And so I did. I offered him a job.
Yeah.
And he took it. So he graduates in May. He's coming to work 1st of May.
That'd be
now, he's got a lot to learn, but he wants to.
It's a good thing, yeah.
He wants to learn and wants to do this.
Yeah.
That UNOH has been great. I know they've kind of partnered with Lucas Oil the last couple years, and you've kind of had people that I guess they're students like teaming up with a team.
Yes.
Like, with Roger Sellers or some of the other drivers.
We bought a new home, which we're hopefully going to learn how to operate next week. They're coming to train us for a couple of days.
Yeah.
And it's all CNC and push button, so it's
wow.
For us old guys, it's going to be a challenge. Yeah. So anyway, we went to for a training class on the machine for a day. And then they gave us a tour of the place, and it's impressive.
I would say so.
I mean, what they are trying to do to get young people involved in motorsports is awesome.
Yeah, it is.
And I knew they were, but I didn't know they were doing it to the scale they're doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, they're getting people involved in all forms of motorsports.
Yeah.
It's drag racing, the monster trucks.
Yeah.
Dirt racing, drifting,
all of it.
Off-road racing, you name it, they're into it.
They're covering all the bases.
They're covering all the bases.
Yeah.
A very impressive deal, yes.
Yeah.
I'd like to go up there and see that sometime.
Yeah, it would be.
Maybe we'll go up there and do a show with them.
Yeah, maybe
you should, because it's really impressive what they're doing to get young people involved in motorsports.
And that's where it's gotta happen, and those young people have to have the desire to learn from you guys that's been in it your whole life, because you all are the teachers to keep it going.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's it's encouraging that here's a guy you're going to hire when he graduates that wants it. He's got a lot to learn, but he brings a lot to the table.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all you got to have is the want to.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
we can teach you how. You just need to want to.
If you want to, bad enough.
That's 3/4 of the battle right there.
Yes.
Finding them that want to.
Yeah, it is for sure. We've got 5 minutes left. I want to get to a couple of things we talked a little bit about before the show, Wes. We wanted to make sure we, on our little road to race day thing we're doing here, we're going to talk to several businesses throughout the next couple of months leading up to racing season here locally, at least, and just thinking about your involvement. We've talked about all this national stuff and just how big Cornett Racing Engines is. It's such cool stuff. But Jack Cornett's also involved right here at home in the hobby stock.
One other guy I
division.
got to mention that just popped in my head. I think maybe I should mention Jonathan Davenport.
I think you should.
Have y'all heard of that guy?
That's a pretty big name.
I don't think we mentioned him, so he's won a lot of races for us. And he's a heck of a shoe, obviously.
He has, yeah.
Yeah, you got to mention him and Bishop too.
Yeah. Bishop came on board, last year, so he's got some of our engines and won some big races last year with us.
Yeah,
just kind of getting to know him.
Those are two big names.
That's two big names. We don't want you to leave anybody out either.
So I'm sitting here thinking, who did I leave out?
Let's make sure we get we've got to make sure we get
Never
get them
let
all
him forget
in.
Nobody.
Help him out here if we have to, because we don't want to leave anybody out.
No.
That's for sure. So,
but we wanted to also talk on the local side. With you're racing the hobby stock and you've got that car and just
you can blame that on Mike Marler. It's his fault. All his fault.
Yeah.
So they started this. Mike and Brandon started this hobby stock class, and so hey, you need to. Of course, Mike knew I used to race.
Yeah,
you need to come down here and hot lap one of these cars. It's like the cars you used to race, old school. Okay, so they were testing down there one night with his late model. Come on down, we got this car down there, and then. I'm like, I don't know. Come on, you got to try it. So I went down there, and then I got there, and I'm like, I'm not doing this. So I turned around, and I'm leaving. They saw me. Yeah. Then they called me, hey, get your ass down here. You know? So I got in it, and then I'm like, I hadn't raced. Last time I'd raced was at Louisville Motor Speedway in 1990.
Mm-hmm.
So it was my racing career had a 29-year hiatus, you know. So it'd been 29 years since I'd raced, but I got in the car and I'm like, hey, I forgot how much fun this was. Didn't really forget. I just didn't think I wanted to do it anymore.
Right.
Didn't have the time and opportunity.
No, I'm working and raising a family. I didn't have the time or the money.
And you didn't have anybody call you up while you're going the other direction and say, where the hell you going either.
So he had another guy taking care of this car the first season, Keith Decker, a local racing legend, super good guy. He's won a race in 4 decades?
I think so.
Either 4 or 5 decades. He's won a race in 4 different decades. That's pretty impressive.
It's a bunch of them, yeah.
Anyway, Keith kept the car, and then we just kind of took turns driving it. So I got to race it 3 or 4 times that first year, and it had a blast.
Yeah,
I had an absolute blast. So I ended up buying the car from Mike, and then we started rebuilding it, and that was, I think, COVID year.
Mm-hmm.
And first we was just going to put an engine in it, as I always going to do. That morphed into rebuilding the entire car, which took us a whole year.
Yeah.
But luckily it was COVID year and we didn't miss much.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've been racing ever since.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. Slow time. And you've been a sponsor there at Lake Cumberland Speedway and been involved locally as well. I mean, over time, you've always been connected to to the local stuff too here.
Yeah, we race once or twice a month.
Yeah.
And then J.R. Haynes that works for me, him and I take turns.
Yeah, yeah. Got you.
Yeah, I got to interview him in Victory Lane when he won.
So JR's a bit shorter than I am, so when he drives, he's got a 2-inch thick boat cushion that he puts in the bottom of the seat.
Yeah.
And he's got a steering wheel extension about this long.
Yeah.
And then pedal extensions when he drives.
So people keep saying me and my buddy here need to buy a Crown Vic and drive it.
Yeah, it's doable. You can take turns.
How big a boat cushion you think I'd need?
You probably need 2 boat cushions.
Yeah, I think you might.
We'll help you alter the car and make the adjustments when we do that.
Yeah, if you'll do that, you help us get the steering wheel extension because I'm gonna need one of them too. So, yeah. Yeah, that'd be a big help.
Brandon's got, I think, Outlaws and Lucas at Ponderosa this year.
Yeah.
So next year he's hoping to have the World Outlaws at Lake Cumberland.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're hoping that as well, man. Like you keep saying.
And I don't want to spill the beans, but it's going to be the Red Cornett Memorial if it happens.
Oh. How awesome.
Which is for my dad.
You heard it here first. Yes. How cool would that be?
So that's our plan. We've been talking about for 3 or 4 years.
Let's not say if it happens. Let's say when it happens. Yeah, I think
it'll be the biggest race, in Somerset.
Yes.
It's ever been here.
No doubt it would be. Yeah. So absolutely. How cool.
Yeah. That would be.
Yeah. Now
really,
that'll
cool.
be awesome when it happens because I think it's going to happen.
Yeah,
it's just a matter of when. And
I think it's a good possibility.
Well, Brandon wants it to happen. So if it don't happen next year, it'll be the next.
Yeah.
He'll make it happen.
Yeah, it will. It will.
That World Outlaws show last year at Ponderosa was the best race of the year. Mikey come
I missed
from the
it.
tail.
I didn't get to see it.
So much fun, yeah.
Man, he had struggled all night.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't get out of his own way. Hot lap qualifying, heat races, barely made the B main. Barely made it through the B main to make the show. And I mean, absolutely put on a show. and won that race. Come from 22nd, I believe.
Yeah,
Best race of the year, hands
that's
down.
Crazy.
And we watched racing all over the state, all over the country. I don't know how many races I watched in 2023, and that was the best race of the year.
Yeah.
Wow.
Gosh, he put a show on.
Yeah, it was good, man. And just the response of the crowd. And
the place was packed,
yeah.
and everybody was on their feet for probably the last 10 or 15 laps. And, I mean, he's just picking them off.
It's the only time I've personally ever been to a racetrack and, like, you could noticeably hear the crowd.
You heard the crowd over the cars.
Over the engines.
Oh, my gosh.
Like, I mean, that just don't happen. It just don't happen.
It's like being at a ball game.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah. And, you know, it's like – it's loud, and you're hearing that crowd over time.
You
it
could.
just
The
it's
crowd.
hard to believe that's even possible, but it happened that night,
was,
so it was cool. One more question. We'll end it with this. I want to ask everybody we talked to during our little Road to Race Day trip we're on here, leading up to race season. When you think about the future of our sport, nationally and locally, what do you think?
You know, nationally, you know, at the upper end, you know, your Lucas Series guys and your World Outlaws guys, you know, I don't see it really going backwards. I just see it getting bigger because that's what it's always done. It's just gotten bigger.
Sure, it has, yeah.
You know, there's going to be more people involved. It's going to be more well-known nationally. More sponsors involved, more money.
Yeah.
I don't see it going backwards any. I just see it getting bigger over
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And so those guys are going to have the money to race. You know, those owners are going to spend the money to race, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
So that part of it, I think, is going to be around for a long time in good shape. You know, local racing is what we need to worry about, I think.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm a local racer.
Yeah.
And, you know, for the normal guy, you know, it's expensive.
Sure it is, yeah.
So, you know, I mean, that's why we don't see, you know, supers, you know, racing every weekend because it's too dang expensive.
Yeah.
And I don't think the crates are much cheaper. I know the engines are obviously a lot cheaper, but the cars are just as expensive.
Yeah.
And tires, I mean, it's, you know, to fill the
Open
crate
wheel
cars.
modifieds are expensive.
To fill the crate car is, you know, expensive.
Right.
Racing in general is expensive.
Yes.
It don't matter if you're in a front wheel drive or a super late model and all in between.
Yeah. So, you know, having obviously different classes, you know, he's going to have Crown Vics and hobby stocks. So, you know, there's a progression of money you got to spend to be competitive and, you know, the skill it takes to drive it.
Yeah.
So I think he's got a good lineup of classes, but the pieces that as y'all know, everything you buy goes up.
Right.
Sure, everything.
You know, the labor that we charge, we haven't really gone up, you know, in a long time, you know, several years. But everything we buy
it's going up.
Now we're, you know, these like a billet crankshaft. I'm having to pay for it.
Yeah.
For the same price I was selling it for
Yeah.
pre-COVID.
Yeah.
But just to give you an example.
That's, yeah.
And that's a lot of things.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's everything. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, look at late model tires.
And
You know, how much they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine. I'm very appreciative of the people like yourself that's still doing it, and so many others that listen to our podcast that you know, you talked about the dream you had of being an engine builder, and so many people out there had a dream of being a race car driver, and it's such a hard thing to be able to do right now and keep doing, and I know because of cost, you know, everything, the cost of everything. And what amazes me though is still, man, you go to Lake Cumberland Speedway on Saturday night, right here in Somerset,
100-something cars,
and there's going to be pits full of cars and grandstands full of fans.
Well, you know, and luckily for us in the industry, you know, racing's worse than the worst drug you could imagine. You know, once you get bit by it, you're literally, you know, bit for life.
Yeah.
You know,
well, that's the thing. I ain't never been on no drugs, but Racing bit me.
29, I went 29 years between races.
Yeah.
And there wasn't 1 week that didn't go by in those 29 years. I was thinking, what kind of race car could I have and what could I be doing?
Sure, yeah.
You know, not 1 week.
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking about it.
Yep.
Not when I didn't want to.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how racing is.
Yeah.
But you look, I mean, families, you got families to take care of. You work all week, you work crazy hours, and you still find time to work on that car and get in the garage, and then you're there on Friday night and Saturday night racing.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
It is a
lot of work.
He does have a good crew chief.
Yeah,
Great crew chief.
Yeah.
Yes. Deborah, she's took over full time in 2024. We learned that today. So that's
she's gonna
good.
paint the whole front end of the car tomorrow.
Not the nose. The nose stays black.
That's what
the nose stays black.
She's got
just,
in mind.
Just the fenders.
Just the fenders.
Just the fenders.
You know, the great thing.
I thought you might change that black nose to make it.
Yeah, I like it too. I think it looks good. Yeah. Keep the black nose, and it looks good for sure. Well, Jack, it's been so much fun, man. Thank you for having us here.
Appreciate you.
Definitely one of the best shows we've had right here live from Cornett Racing Engines. Once we got rolling, man, it was just like a good conversation. So that's what we look for. So a whole lot of fun.
Yeah.
For Josh Chastain, Wes Lanham, and Jack Cornett right here in Somerset, Kentucky. This has been Dirt Racing in the Bluegrass Live. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you in March. We'll have another one of these coming up here. So thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.